Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We are doing it live and doing more at 4 weekday afternoons. It's Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks finishing slightly higher today. Investors taking in the latest comments and news on tariffs. Expectations that the president might back off on some of the tariffs he's talking about taking effect on April 2nd. Could be less aggressive than previously expected. Investors also appear to shrug off concerns that consumers are growing more anxious about the economy. The Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index moving lower again today, based on the latest reading, to a more than 4-year low. The Dow, meanwhile, coming in for a closing gain of 4 points. The S&P 500 up 9. The NASDAQ rallied another 83 points. This after yesterday's big rally, which kicked off the week. We had a big start to the week on Wall Street, with the Dow closing up nearly 600 points yesterday, and the NASDAQ racked up a gain as well. That was pretty decent, and the S&P 500 moved higher. Shares of Tesla also rebounded yesterday and continued that rebound today, moving up about $10 at $288 and change. Looks like NVIDIA pulling back slightly today after yesterday's rally. Shares of GameStop, remember that one of the meme names, rising 6% this afternoon in after-hours trading after the video game retailer and original meme stock announced its eagerly anticipated entry into crypto, namely Bitcoin. GameStop says its board has unanimously approved an update to its investment policy to add Bitcoin as a Treasury reserve asset. According to MarketWatch, the move did not come completely out of the blue, as the Bitcoin buzz has swirled around GameStop and its chief executive in recent weeks. Speaking of the cryptos, we see Bitcoin rallying this week as well. Right now, it's above 87,000. Coming up, we'll get an update on the business buzz here in Los Angeles from Mark Wilbur, the chairman of Employers Group, former chair and founding member of the Los Angeles Business Federation, LA BizFed, former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business. Crime and homelessness moving up on the list of local business concerns. We'll get an update on what's happening out there in the real world with the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former LA City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, and longtime contributor on this program. And we'll talk about the city's budget situation here as well. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, crypto too. Joining us live now is John NAJARIAN. Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks over the years, co-founder of Market Rebellion, author of numerous books with his brother Pete, including the latest one, It's Not an Option. He has the laser eyes on, too, as one of the earlier followers of Bitcoin and crypto. John NAJARIAN. Dr. J, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Always great to be on with you, Frank. Thank you very much. Great to be on in the air in L.A.
Live on the air throughout Southern California, as a matter of fact. We're on the air live with John NAJARIAN, and we got a nice rally this week, another update today. Do you think the worst of this correction is over, John NAJARIAN? Give us your view of the overall market here, first of all.
Well, we always kind of look for the bounce. And clearly we got one starting on the 10th when the market really bottomed. We started to see a number of stocks start to get bid. Tesla was one of them, and pretty soon Palantir followed suit. A lot of the ones that were hit pretty hard going into that basically second week of March were starting to base or even rebound, in some cases, like Tesla, for instance, a V-shaped bottom, because Tesla was 220 on the 10th of March and went screaming up today through 280 and change, a little higher than that. So a nice strong rally. It finished the day at 288 again today, about a 3.5% rally. And I think it's kind of like the same fatigue that athletes get when they have worked out for a long time. The market was getting fatigued, but in this case, it's the kind of fatigue that investors like, because it was a fatigue of all of the bad news and all of the demonizing of the tariffs. I'm not saying I'm a fan or a hater of the tariffs, either one. I'm just saying that each time a new tariff was announced, it had less and less of an impact on the markets. And lately, investors, in particular institutional investors, have been shrugging off what they think would be bad news about tariffs, including, just as you said, the news that the consumer confidence number was one of the lowest numbers that we've seen in years.
On the live with John NAJARIAN, and are you taking Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's advice in buying Tesla? It did rebound a couple times here since those comments last week.
I did, and I continue to hold it right now. It's not a pump and dump. I think it got oversold. As you know, and your listeners, certainly the ones that trade know, there's something known as the RSI, which stands for Relative Strength Index. And every stock, every ETF is tracked for RSI. Sometimes you get to the upper end of that, and it becomes a little bit of fear of missing out. And those are times when, as Warren Buffett said, sell when they're greedy, buy when they're fearful. And the fearful side was hitting back on March 10th when Tesla traded to the low end of its relative strength index. So these are bands, Bollinger Bands and so forth, that bracket the market itself and individual stocks. When you get down to the very lowest end of that, as Tesla did and perhaps Palantir and a number of other stocks, you tend to see institutions and speculators come in on the lower end. And when it's on the upper end of those bands, if it breaks out to that upper end, people start selling. And for the past, I'd say week and a half, we've been in the mode of people buying because the relative strength index was so weak.
On there live with John NAJARIAN, and checking the other Mag 7 names, we see NVIDIA rebounding from its recent low here, up around to just below 121 here, down 72 cents today, but rallied yesterday. Apple up again today at more than 3 to 223 and change. What about those names and the rest of the Mag 7 names we follow?
Well, Apple and NVIDIA were both certainly focused stocks, and people tend to sell. Again, you've been at this nearly as long as I have. People tend to sell their winners. They rarely want to sell their losers into a falling market. They'd rather take some of the profit and lock it in from the winning stocks. And certainly Apple, NVIDIA, Tesla, and like I say, Palantir, Microsoft, Meta, a number of these stocks were basically tapped for their by the holders of those stocks to take some profits off the table and perhaps look for better entry points. They have pushed many of those stocks down to multi-month lows, and in the case of Apple, if you were patient, you were able to pick it up below 210. And as you say, today up over 223 and 224. So those might not seem like huge moves, but again, I would tell investors, in particular investors, zoom out. When you're looking at such a closely bunched in trades, you're looking at probably a little too closely for an investor. Traders like me, that's what we do. We zoom in, but investors should zoom out and realize that for the year, we were only down 3.9%, I think, on the lows for the year, but we were significantly lower than the highs of the year. And it's a very young year, obviously. We're still in that first quarter. So if people really did zoom out a little bit, they'd say, well, it doesn't seem like it's down too hard. I'm not going to dump all my stock here. And I think those that made that decision are happier today than those that decided on December 10th, 11th, or 12th. I'm sorry, March 10th, 11th, or 12th, that they wanted to jettison their portfolio.
On the live with Dr. J, as he's known, John NAJARIAN. John, let me ask you about, let's get some of the exciting stuff here now. Crypto, Bitcoin rebounding impressively this week as the NASDAQ rebounded. Once again, we saw the cryptos rebound. Bitcoin at last check just below 88,000 here. Ethereum above 2,000, just above 2,000. And Doge has ticked higher to 19 cents. Give us your view of what's happening with those names and the overall crypto space here now.
Well, I think you're exactly right. And in many cases, people were doing the same thing with the cryptos. It is a risk-on trade. When it is risk-on, people are buying cryptos, in particular, the granddaddy, Bitcoin itself, followed by Ethereum and Solana, the ones that have uses rather than being either digital gold or some sort of store of value that Bitcoin is, I believe. I think a lot of folks were taking profits as soon as it got near 100, and certainly when it crossed 100 to the US dollar, there were a lot of people taking profits. Those that did were able to reload, if you will, some $20,000 cheaper at around 80 or 82,000. Today we were up around 87,000, and I would think that as long as we're not in a panic mode, which I don't really think we'll see until close to April 2nd, that's when the rest of the tariffs may, and I do say may, kick in, because one of the things that President Trump has said that all proposed tariffs set for April 2nd may not be implemented as initially planned. Some countries may get exemptions and so forth. So this is as it has been during his first tour. This is negotiation and a tactic that the president uses to get what he wants from both our allies and those that aren't quite as friendly to us.
No Contest Wrestling. O'Shea Jackson Jr. and TJ Jefferson with the biggest names in the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, X-Pac.
Getting suspended in school, that's the number one thing people, when they meet me, they tell me.
I got detention.
Yeah, everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, Liv Morgan.
I couldn't believe that was my time. I was so grateful.
Talking about living dreams. No pun intended, TJ. Relax.
I rarely do these anymore, but I was really looking forward to this.
The No Contest Wrestling Podcast, part of the Rich Eisen Podcast Network. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
All right, what are your thoughts about some of the Bitcoin-related stocks, strategy, for example, Coinbase, the ETFs, the miners, and so forth?
Well, the miners like CLSK, that one in particular was seeing a lot of money flow over the past 24 hours. And it is just a North American Bitcoin mining company. They do that within our borders and so forth. It's known as Clean Spark. And it was up pretty strong over the past several days. Let's see, the 5-day chart on it shows 15% is what that one had rallied. And I think the big news of the day may have been, and may be going forward, the fact that the president himself, his stock and his Trump Media, Truth Social, and so forth, they did that deal with Crypto.com, which I believe is an LA-based company, one of the largest cryptos on the planet, certainly has big naming rights for the Miami Grand Prix, the F1, as well as your arena in Los Angeles. And the president's stock, DJT, was up pretty strong today based on the idea that they are going to be bringing ETFs, exchange-traded funds, that will track digital assets as well as made in America securities. So some of the American companies that we're talking about. And the fact that they're doing that with one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world, and the funds are going to be available in the U.S., Europe, Asia, of course, and that they're going to invest, I guess, $250 million of their own money in these ETFs through Charles Schwab, that's a pretty big deal, both for Crypto.com and for DJT Media, which was why the stock was rebounding today.
Interesting. I believe Crypto.com is headquartered in Singapore, and they believe they have a headquarters in Texas now. And yes, you're right. We do have that Crypto.com arena right there in the heart of Los Angeles, formerly the Staples Center. We're on the air live with Dr. John NAJARIAN. And let's talk about what else is happening here. Gold continues to shine here above 3,000. Good old analog gold. Are you doing anything with good old gold here?
I'm not. I do own some gold because of my friend, our mutual friend, Peter Schiff, and I'm happy that I do. Doesn't hurt that John Paulson's here on the island in Puerto Rico as well, and he made that big bet on gold back in the early 2000s, and it's now, I think, more than tripled from the time he put that big bet on for himself and his investors. I thought also that Mobileye trade was pretty big today. The fact that Mobileye, which is, of course, multiple rings of cameras and radar that are for basically self-driving vehicles, or at least the consumer would sit in the vehicle and let the vehicle drive itself, versus Waymo and Tesla, which basically are able to drive completely on their own. This is something that Volkswagen really endorsed by doing a deal with them today with Mobileye, MBLY. And this is, of course, a spin out off of the Intel portfolio. And I think this is something that is a big deal to get basically Audis, Porsches, Volkswagens, and so forth, all the brands that are under Volkswagen, as well as I think it's called Valeo, Valeo, another European car maker in France that basically also decided that they'd really like to have the Mobileye driver assist, if not full self-driving.
Now you got GameStop announcing today, after hours here, and the stock's moving higher in after hours trading, that it's getting into Bitcoin. Looks like they're going into, they've added an update to their investment policy to add Bitcoin as a Treasury reserve asset. What's your reaction to that? And will more companies be doing this, you think?
Yes, I do believe more companies will indeed be doing that. It won't just be Strategy, formerly MicroStrategy. It will be a number of other companies that will be doing this. And the more they do that, the bigger the chance that Michael Saylor's vision for this digital asset will move significantly higher. That's one belief that I'd have. And the fact that Ryan Cohen, who's, of course, the CEO over there at GameStop, he is really basically throwing the kitchen sink at the markets right about now. Stock's up 7% in the after hours, but it was down about 19% so far this year. And he's looking for, whatever it might be that would cause that short selling crew that has been attacking his stock to lay off. And this could be one of those silver bullets that he was looking for.
All right. If anyone wants to see you work out, go to your X feed, formerly known as Twitter, John NAJARIAN. You're talking about Disney stock there. And let me ask you also, how was your big Vegas conference over the weekend?
Oh, that was great. Vegas is always fun. And we had, between ourselves and Grant Cardone with his 10X Growth Con, we had some 6,400 people in Vegas for that. And I don't know how many total online, but the number is usually pretty close to six figures online, that they get a significant discount, if not free. So the fact that many people are interested both in how to grow their businesses as well as how to grow their portfolios tells you that there's a lot of DIY, do-it-yourself folks that are out there. And I think that's a very positive thing, rather than just handing your money off to somebody else. At least understanding how you make money on your own is a smart move, I think.
All right. I know you talk about options on your show, Rebel's Edge, and you have the book, It's Not an Option. What's hot in the option world here now?
Well, some of the biggest players have been coming back into the markets here, as tracked by S&P and others. The big move after the sell-off was that for the first time, just in the last four sessions, the market had turned, which is, of course, partially why the market moved to the upside. But institutions and hedge funds were basically either sitting on their hands or selling for the basically from February 19th through into that March 10th low. They have come back into the market. Again, this is measured not by me, but by S&P and so forth, that these institutions have come back in. And this is the first time since the beginning of March that institutions are back buying again. So that's a good sign for those of us who are long stocks. The shorts aren't real happy about that, but it's kind of like some of the March Madness that goes on, Frank. I feel bad for the shorts, much like I feel bad for St. John's versus Arkansas. But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Absolutely, John. Well, thanks for covering all the bases as always here today. We do appreciate it. We'll let you get on with the rest of your evening and relax following that successful conference over the weekend. John NAJARIAN, Dr. J's, he's known on the major financial networks. We'll be looking for you, John, and following you on X, formerly known as Twitter, co-founder of Market Rebellion. The book is It's Not an Option. John, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Lane.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways now, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Tesla rallying again today up nearly $10 at $288 and change. NVIDIA pulling back 72 cents at $120 and change. Apple continued on a roll at more than $3 at $223 and change. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 4 points today, settling at 42,587. The S&P 500 up 9 at 5,776. The NASDAQ gaining 83 points at 18,272. This after the big rally yesterday in which we saw the Dow Jones Industrial Average kick off the week with a big triple-digit gain. Taking a look at the cryptos now, Bitcoin down about 500, back to 87,600. Ethereum down about $3 now at 2,061, and Doge at the moment at 19 cents. Gold hovering at 3,025 and change. Silver at 34.09. Crude oil ticking higher. Right now it's 69.31 a barrel. The VIX index, the volatility index, Wall Street so-called fear index, pulling back 2%. The yield in the 10-year note, which impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates, now at 4.32%. Now the latest news, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Consumer confidence plunging to the lowest level seen in more than 4 years in the month of March, with households fearing a recession in the future, according to the Conference Board. Another survey says the economy will enter a recession in the second half of this year, according to a majority of chief financial officers responding to the quarterly CNBC CFO Council survey. Crime and homelessness, meanwhile, have moved up on the list of business concerns here in the Los Angeles area. Let's get an update now on what's happening on the business scene here in Los Angeles. Joining us live now is Mark Wilbur, chairman of Employers Group, former chair and founding member of the Los Angeles Business Federation, LA BizFed, former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business. Mark Wilbur, thanks very much for taking the call this afternoon.
Thanks so much for having me on, Frank. Nice to be here.
Likewise, a lot of moving parts, of course. What's your reaction to these latest surveys, and what's the buzz here in Los Angeles at the moment?
I love the ad that comes on KABC there, about, if you shake your head with other media outlets, isn't that the case? And when I saw the CFO report, but it was reported by CNBC, it's one of those things where, I have a very skeptical eye on things like that. You have to think back, Frank, under the Biden administration, it was a one-trick pony. It was basically we waited month to month to hear what Jerome Powell was going to say on interest rates. That was it. I mean, there really wasn't, other than our economy being primed at the pump from what our government was spending, it was one of those things where we kind of had an idea. President Trump and this administration is using a multitude of mechanisms, and I think I would be very surprised if we ended up in a recession by year end. I know we have a lot of debt. They're getting the spending under control. It's not just Doge. They're actually dealing with the budgetary measures. But he also has an ability to prime the pump, if you will, on tax cuts. And tax cuts have proven in the past to be very beneficial for the economy. It puts more money in people's pockets to spend, and it has typically a very positive impact. So there's a lot of mechanisms to look at there, Frank. You know me. If I thought it was going to be a recession, I would double down and say, yeah, it's going to happen. But I'm not there yet. I think there's too many things at play, too many mechanisms at play in the administration, and I think we are starting to see our government get its spending under control. And
we were reminded a few moments ago by John NAJARIAN that this stomach turning downturn recently for the markets wasn't quite that bad, based on and now this rebound, of course. So we are following that, and that might be another reason why we've seen the dip in confidence lately with these market gyrations, which can be stomach churning, especially in some sectors of the market. So what about what's happening here with the firestorm area recovery? This area is facing unique challenges this year. All the business groups, of course, working together to get this recovery going. We've had Rick Caruso on this program again just this past Friday on Steadfast LA and his effort, and of course other efforts underway. Give us your impressions of how this is all going.
Let me come to the fire thing in just 1 second, Frank. I want to go back to one thing you just mentioned, and that was the consumer confidence report. I don't think that report was taken, or that survey was taken after Sunday. I don't think that was just taken. I think that was actually prior to this. And as you know, the President Trump softened the stance on tariffs. And I think that is going to have a much more positive impact, as you saw Monday in the market a little bit today. And I think there's been a settlement of some of that. So anyway, I just wanted to touch base on that, because I don't think, yes, it has plummeted consumer confidence, but that was with all the threats of tariffs going on at an extreme level. And I think that has been settled down a bit at this point.
You're absolutely right about that. Let me also just tell you you're absolutely right about that. The cutoff for that survey was March 19th. So we're talking about a week ago for that Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index. Please go right ahead.
Expert entrepreneur Ed Milet is on a mission to max out your life.
So many of you have dreams in your life and you don't go touch them. You've got to begin to touch your dreams.
It's time to get laser focused on peak performance.
I'm going to give you very unique habits that I do on a daily basis. Say no more. Have deadlines in your life. Go to work.
And become the best version of you.
Take a day and serve that mission.
The Ed Milet Show.
Max out.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I thought that was the case. So as it relates to the fire task force, we're kind of in this quiet period. I know Rick Caruso has his group going on. I've signed on to that to get information to stay on top of it. BizFed is working feverishly on tracking any kind of legislative updates or any kind of policy and efforts that are being done by the city and the county. So, we have our nose in the tent, but it's in that kind of phase right now, Frank, where everybody's kind of got their head down and working on things to try and alleviate some of the inactivity, if you will. And the inactivity isn't that necessarily anything's blown up or anything like that, but we've got to get a way to inject the speed of this thing and get it moving. I think that's where I get concerned, because if people get used to this kind of stagnation, if you will, where we're kind of talking a lot about fire recovery and talking a lot about getting permitting, sped up, and we're talking about these things, but until those things start happening and we start breaking ground and we can announce that cleanups are actually done and completed, until those things happen, it's very stressful, because every day just keeps clicking by. Right now it's, 4:43 on a Tuesday, and you and I could talk in a couple days, and I'm pretty sure nothing's going to change between now and Thursday, as it won't for probably another week after that. And then if we get used to that, Frank, and we don't start saying, hey, enough's enough, let's get moving, then we're going to end up with problems. And I think this is what our mayor needs to be very cognizant of, is that, everybody's kind of wishful and hopeful that things are going to move in the right direction. But there needs to be reported activity on a weekly basis that's crystal clear, very transparent, and showing positivity that we're moving in the right direction to get these people back in properties, back in their homes, back in places that they can live.
On there live with Mark Wilbur, and certainly the business community driving a lot of this with these various initiatives. And what's getting your attention? And obviously you're tracking all of this very, very closely. What's gotten your attention as a good idea that's working at this point?
Well, some of the things that are happening on, getting some of the CEQA stuff, held back, and some of the permitting things that I have heard and rumored, but I haven't seen it yet, that are starting to happen. would be a great step in the right direction. But again, we're just not getting the reporting and the information in a fluid enough level and transparent enough level that people can actually see it taking action. And we need to be, really vigilant here, Frank. And I really, and there needs to be more people on it. We got Sam in place, to be an advisor and a director of this rebuild process. But again, not hearing a lot, not seeing a lot, not getting communicated with a lot. And we just can't do that. This has to be very open. This is a gigantic wound. It is the largest fire damage in the history of our country. And I've heard multiple outlets report on that. And we're just not addressing this stuff at a speed that I think needs to happen. I think we need to pick it up. We need to turn up the heat a little bit, not from a complaining standpoint, but from a communication standpoint about what's happening.
All the more reason to continue these conversations. Mark, thank you very much for taking the call here. That's Mark WILBUR, Chairman of Employers Group, former chair and founding member of the Los Angeles Business Federation, LA BizFed, former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business, live with us here on Mottek On Money, 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. Crime and homelessness moving up on the list of local business concerns here in the Los Angeles area. The city's budget situation also getting very, very serious now. Let's bring in the Honorable Dennis ZINE now, former Los Angeles City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, current reserve officer out there with 56 years of service at last count to the City of Angels. Dennis ZINE is on the line. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Frank.
Give us your assessment here of what's happening on. Yeah, it is a beautiful day, a little bit foggy, right? In many ways, it is. We count our blessings certainly, but give us the real on what's happening out there. What's caught your attention on the crime front?
Well, the crime front continues. While the chief has, with the mayor, said the crime numbers are down, I think many people that I've spoken to are not reporting crime. A lot of folks just get frustrated with the system. They call 911, extensive delays, nobody shows up. There's a lot of unsatisfied people, shall we say, victims in the city of Los Angeles. But the crime statistics show improvement over the past. But again, if people don't report crimes, then there's no documentation. And I encourage people to report crimes when they occur, no matter what it is. You need to report those crimes. So I think one of the problems is the reporting system is not working as efficient as it should. But we know we're down in officers. We know recruitment's not working. We know we've got some major events coming to Los Angeles, and a lot of people are in fear. Our traffic situation is out of control. We know that there's not enough officers in traffic enforcement. There's a lot of failing things. And then now, when we come out with this new survey that shows the areas that are prone to fire, what that's going to result in is people that are now going to be involved in those areas and live in those areas, you're going to find your insurance rates skyrocketing, because they're going to use that as a base to say, well, you're in a prone area, so we're going to have to increase your insurance rate. So it's a circle, Frank, and it doesn't seem to stop. It just keeps going around and around, and the poor victims suffer more and more every day, whether it's crime or the quality of life or a homeless situation. And if you look at how many billions we're spending on the homeless and zero results, and now they're talking about dismantling LASA and some of these other organizations, starting over. What's happened with those billions that they've spent on homeless? And we see homeless populations continue and crime continues, and people don't report the crime. So the numbers are going to show, it's been great because people aren't reporting. People need to report every single crime, whether they're stealing tires or stealing cars, catalytic converters. I don't care what they're stealing. Those reports need to be made either on the telephone or on the computer, or if you have the time, go to a police station when they're open, because we know oftentimes the stations close in the evening hours.
On there live with Dennis ZINE, and certainly we've heard these nightmare stories where people call 911 and get put on hold or no answer, ultimately hanging up on the caller and so forth. Has that situation improved now? What are you hearing starting with that?
Well, I know they're short over 100 911 dispatchers just in the city of Los Angeles. So oftentimes there's not enough dispatchers to handle the calls. I mean, I support the chief of police. I support the officers on the street trying to do the job, but they need additional resources. The bottom line is, without the resources, you can't handle the problem. We need to have that. We need to have them adequately staffed, whether they're taking the 911 calls, the civilians that do that, or the officers that are rolling around those black and whites, and then the detectives that investigate those crimes. And hopefully we'll have a district attorney, which we now have a district attorney that likes to file criminal charges, unlike the previous district attorney. So we have some aspects that are positive, and still we have some that are absolutely negative.
On the line with Dennis Zine, what about the city's budget situation in the face of all of this, facing a nearly $1 billion budget deficit projected for next year? You were on the city council for many years. If you were sitting there now, how would you address this disaster here as far as the budget is concerned?
Well, Frank, they want to now come up with a 2-year budget. So what we do is we kick the can down until next year. After that, the mayor will be reelected, and we'll have new council people in some places. So the bottom line is we can't keep kicking the can down the road. What we need to do is address the issues. And clearly, if they're $1 billion in the hole, if they're admitting $1 billion in the hole, well, what is the real number? And if you look at the expenditures that we're spending on homeless and not seeing results, and if they say we have a 5% reduction, that's ridiculous because everyone sees them everywhere. Let's look at the real facts and the real numbers. So now they're going to go to Sacramento. They went there yesterday, the day before, and said, okay, we need $2 billion. Well, you're already $1 billion short, so you get that. And then they're going to go to the federal government, and then they want to build new fire stations. So now they want to do a partial tax because they want to build over 60 fire stations. It's a circus, and the circus keeps on going around. The ringmaster is getting tired and frustrated because it's not stopping. Fire stations. Then they want to go to the city employees and say, give back the salary increase we gave you because we need to salvage the city, or we're going to not continue employment. I mean, really, the city needs to be managed better than it is. And if you look at some of the council members that have absolutely no knowledge, experience on how to run a business, leave alone run a city, of the millions of people we have, it's really a pathetic situation. Let me talk about water and power. The general manager of water and power makes $750,000 a year. She wants to hire private security to protect her because she had some threats at the tune of $700,000 a year. She wants the city to pay $700,000 a year to give her security. Give her a CCW training and let her protect herself like the rest of the people in our society. She wants to be treated special. And her salary is $750,000 to run the Department of Water and Power. Where was the water during the fire in Pacific Palisades? Frank, I can go on and on. I mean, it doesn't stop. It's just it's like a circus, and the ringmaster is going nuts trying to salvage what we have as a sinking city.
Dennis Zine on the line, former LA City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, an angel in the City of Angels here with 56 years and counting service to the City of Angels. Dennis Zine, thank you very much for joining us live. Wish we had more time as always. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
If you're listening to sports,
if you're looking for an edge rusher, looking for a run stuffer, you're looking for a big-time player in the middle of your defense, you're in luck.
Mixed with pop culture, sprinkled with celebrity interviews.
You hated the title Everybody Loves Raymond.
That's true.
Is it appropriate for you to tell people to hurry it up?
It's appropriate on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Bill Burr is here.
I want to know who you defeated to get that title as best dad ever.
I'm the Gonzaga of dads.
And you're enjoying the Rich Eisen Show podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.